Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Welcome to our seminar. My name is Andre Mora. Welcome to our seminar hosted by Prospera. And we look forward to giving you a great presentation today where you're going to learn something and hopefully learn a couple of strategies to grow your existing or soon to be existing business. A couple of technical pointers before we start. If you have any issues with my audio, if you're seeing me move and seeing my lips move up and down, but you can't hear me, please, as with any program, the three dots usually do a trick. Switch audio is one way to do it. Another trick to do it, if you see everything on your screen, but you can't hear me, is to call in through your phone. And same with the three dots, this option should be able to allow you to give you a number so you can hear through your phone and see the screen over here. Also, really important, I love making these seminars as interactive as possible. Obviously, you guys are going to have a lot of questions throughout the seminar. This chat button right here is how you can communicate with us. I'm just going to say, hello, everyone. This is the chat so that you guys can see it. Excuse the spelling errors. So that's how the chat, you can send in all your questions through there, and we're happy to hear from you. Thank you for coming again. We, of course, want to give a special thank you to the City of Miami Beach, the Department of Economic Development. We've been able to work with them for the past few months in what's called this Miami Beach Business Academy Technical Assistance. We've been able to work with them in terms of business consulting for Miami Beach businesses and any business. Specifically focus on operations capacity, access to capital, digital presence for the education side, growth and strategy analysis. We're here. We only have 2 more months left. So please, even if you're a business in Miami Beach, you know someone who's a business in Miami Beach, please let them know that we have these services available. If you want to have a little bit more information, Michael Rivera, he's a good guy. I talk to him constantly. He's your contact. And if you aren't able to write his email down, you can let me know and I'll send you his email at any time. We also want to let you guys know about the Miami-Dade Business Navigator. Me and Steve, our presenter for today, are very familiar with this program. It's sponsored by the SBA and it's dedicated for Miami-Dade businesses to be able to navigate what is the ecosystem here to help in terms of consulting nonprofits in the community, right? So what was it? It was established with the American Rescue Plan Act that most of us are very familiar with, where it establishes a hub, a community partner, and each spoke. So Prospera and branches are part of those spokes. We're part of this program. And really what it focuses on, improving long-term economic recovery and resiliency for small businesses here. We want to make sure that if anything happens again, the best time to be prepared for a disaster is before the disaster even happens. That's why me and Steve are here, okay? It's also focused on veterans, women's, socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, but we're here to help everybody, okay? These are the organizations that are working together to help you guys: Prospera, Branches, Ascendus, the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, Startup FIU, EDC, here to help. So please, if you have any questions, we're here to take them all. If you have any, this kind of, and you can reach out if you have any questions about the program. Okay, I like to call this the thank you hour because this also wouldn't be possible without our annual sponsors that believe in the mission that Prospera brings and believe in the mission and the education, the services that we bring to you guys. So thank you to all our annual sponsors. Thank you to Miami Beach. Thank you to the Miami-Dade Business Navigator. And without further ado, here are today's presenters. My name is Andre Mora. I'm from Mexico. I've been working with Prospera for over 2 years now, business development consultant, and I'm happy to help with any business that has its needs. And I'm very honored to present Mr. Steve Armand, good friend of mine. He's the director of the micro business program. Oh, big hitter here today, guys. So he works in branches. I'm super honored to have him here, and we're gonna have a hell of a presentation today. So the agenda, who is Prospera? We're going to talk a bit about Prospera, Prospera services, how we do it. That'll make sense in a little bit, a little suspense. And we're going to have Steve talk to us about growth strategy and analysis. And then if you have any questions, feel free to send them in at any time. I'm going to be making sure that I get to all of them. I'll write them down in order, but also we'll have some time to answer them at the end. Okay, so who's Prospera? Prospera is Florida's leading economic development agency focused on helping Hispanic entrepreneurs and really any entrepreneur in where it started in Florida, and we've slowly expanded to Georgia and North Carolina. We specialize in providing bilingual technical assistance for low to moderate income businesses, but again, we help everybody. Okay. What do we do best? We work with you. We make sure that we meet you where you are in terms of your business. Are you just thinking that you want to get into your own business? Are you tired of your 9 to 5? You want to start your own job? You want to be your own boss? We can meet you there. If you already have established a business and don't know where to take the next step, we're here to help you. If you already have $1 million business, but not too sure what you want to do with it, we meet you there. We're there for you. We want to make sure that you avoid the common errors that happen when you start a business, when you run a business, or when you want to sustain business, right? If, for example, COVID happened, you don't know what to do, we're here to meet you there to make sure that you're able to sustain your business, keep it be profitable, or at least keep it going until we have better times ahead, okay? We offer consulting and different services to make sure that your business has a better chance of being successful, okay? So how do we do it? Prospera Services. We have business seminars just like this one, orientations that are more general, how to start a business. And we also have specialized workshops just like this one, where we talk about growth strategy. We talk about how to do branding for your business. We talk about how to start a social media page, how to run your own brand. We talk about how to survive a pandemic, what to do at a disaster, how to prepare for a disaster. So a lot of special topics that we have here every week for you folks. We have business consulting. That's where I come in. We meet you where you are. We see what we diagnose what we can do better in the business. We see what we can hopefully make sure that we are able to achieve your goals, not to grow, it's your goals, what you want for your business. Okay. We also do access to capital. We do not give out loans, but we do the consulting around the loan and access to capital process. We take a look at the numbers that the banks are already looking at, and we see if you're ready to access a loan. And if you're not, how we can get there. Okay. And Branches does a little bit of that as well. In fact, Steve is going to talk about Branches in a little bit too. Okay. So, and we also have these tools for entrepreneurial advancement. This is our form of grants. We don't like to call it grants because what we do is we subcontract specialists, for example, accountants, lawyers, branding specialists, graphic designers, to give you the services that maybe you didn't think you need, or that you really couldn't afford and you really needed. So we want to make sure that everybody has the same chance to be able to succeed. How do we do this? And the reason this slide exists is because all of the services that I just mentioned here at Prospera, those are all free of charge, no money, gratuito. How do we do that? We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Our services are free of charge thanks to donations from past clients and donors. That's why we have the thank you hour. Thank you guys for letting all the businesses receive these services for free of charge. Okay. I love to tell my clients, hey, this is free of charge, but time is money. It does take time to improve yourself. It takes time to improve your business. Make sure that you invest the time in your business to be able to reap the benefits down the road. Okay. Of course, it would be remiss if you would love to donate. This is the link. Please let me know. I'd be happy to help, okay? Here are some of the Prospera clients that we've worked with before. Shade, Florida, a great friend of ours, 3Cycle, Neo Broadband, Vicky's Bakery, love me some croqueticas in the morning. And we have some of these businesses, I don't know, because they're all over the state, they're all over the country now, that we were able to help them all over the country to meet their needs. And now, without further ado, I'd love to bring in Mr. Steve Armand. Steve, how you doing this evening?
Doing really well, Andre. And let me just start by, sharing my appreciation for the opportunity to be able to share some of my knowledge on this topic. It's really an honor for me to be here this evening. You've been really tremendously helpful to us at Branches. And this is in some form of, some little way, an opportunity for me to pay it back. And really
Absolutely.
appreciate you, Andre.
Of course.
And looking forward to a really dynamic meeting.
Of course.
I do have, like you, a really strong interest in seeing businesses succeed. It's why we do what we do, and this is just a part of that journey. So thank you again,
Absolutely,
Andre.
Steve.
Really
No,
appreciate it.
it's an honor to have you, Steve.
Sure.
Okay.
So
You want me to get it going?
yeah.
Perfect.
So when Andre asked me to help with presenting this topic today, I did some thinking because it's such a broad topic, and it's really broad because of the fact that growth strategies, um, you can have a growth strategy for your particular business. You can have growth strategies for businesses within an industry. You can have growth strategies for markets. There's so many different ways to look at this, but I think what I would really like to get across to the audience today is that when you're looking at growth strategies, you really want to look at those strategies very particular to where you are at that point in time in your business. What you want to look at those growth strategies as it connects to opportunities, but you also want to look at those growth strategies as it connects to issues or challenges that you're facing at the same time. Some growth strategies just improve on things. Other growth strategies really enable you to move beyond problems that you're facing. So we can move to the the next slide. So we'll be talking about what basically is a strategy today. We'll be talking about what is growth, right? And what do we mean by growth? We'll be talking about, well, it's I added an additional one. It's really 5 growth strategies that connect to small businesses, but there are 6 growth strategies. There's a 6th one that really is for businesses that are higher up in scale. And of course, we'd be looking at how we measure that growth, right? So what really is a strategy? And that we can move to the next slide, Andre. Yeah. So what is a strategy? And really the term strategy has its bearings, and as in the case of most words in English, its origin from the Greek language. However, we really only saw the use of the term strategy in and around 400 BC. There's this book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu, right? It's a Chinese military book. And in that, they actually made note of the term strategy, right? But really, strategy came out in the older ages from the perspective of what was, how the military was able to plan its campaigns of war to be able to, to defeat an enemy. And over the years, what worked in the military space was actually translated into what works in business, and then what works in the corporate space. And if you notice in the slide there, it's the military approach versus the business approach versus the corporate approach. And really, it's about scale and focus. So from a military perspective, strategy is about defeating the enemy. It's about the destruction of the competitor. In the business approach, strategy is about building the business in the environment where your competitor also thrives, or where your competitor is continuing. So those two perspectives are really significant, and you'll understand why that is so in some of the subsequent slides. The corporate approach, again, this is something that's really at scale. So for a small business, you would focus more on business strategy, but for a large company, they would actually be more concerned with, well, not more concerned, but they will also have a corporate strategy on top of their business strategy. And then what really is strategy? And today, for our understanding, strategy is really about how we plan to create value. So a strategy is about creating value for your customers. It's about creating value for your suppliers, and ultimately, by doing both of those, creating value for for your company, right? And when we talk about creating value, let's say for customers, we're talking about how do you increase customer satisfaction. And there's a term in economics, it's called basically the marginal utility of a product or service. And that's really how much enjoyment or how much satisfaction does your customer get from using either the product that you're selling or the service that you're providing. So it's about the marginal utility of what you provide in your business. But in business, there's also another term, it's called your value proposition. So your value proposition is really the value that you provide for your customers in exchange for the money that they pay you, right? When you talk about the value for your suppliers, you're talking about basically, the consistency of your demand upon your suppliers. And not only the consistency, but the growth in terms of that relationship. So suppliers are businesses themselves, and they're looking at you to have either a stable demand, right, where you buy from them on a regular basis at a rate of purchase, but they're also looking to grow their business. So they're looking to you, to increase your purchases as well. So in a strategy, how do you create value for your suppliers? And I remember years ago when, Six Sigma and Lean Six Sigma, which is a quality process for companies, became very popular. And it was really made popular in the United States by a company called General Electric, which we are all familiar with. And what General Electric did was they used a Lean Six Sigma. Well, it started off as Six Sigma, but they used this quality approach to fixing a lot of their production problems in their company, right? Whatever issues that they had, they simply applied, Six Sigma as a quality standard and as a quality process to improve on the things that they were doing internally. And when they did that, their production ramped up so quickly and so exponentially that their suppliers were having issues supplying them. So what they did was that they actually used their Six Sigma technology and training, and they took it to their suppliers and said, hey, this worked really well for us. We'd like to train you and your staff, your management and your staff, in the Six Sigma approach. And what they did, and by doing that, what eventually happened was that they were able to cure and fix supply chain issues, right? So as a strategy for adding value to your suppliers, or for them adding value to their suppliers, they help them improve on their operations. Those operations allow their suppliers to produce more and to produce more consistently. I'm pretty sure it actually affected prices in a positive way for General Electric. And what eventually happened was they were able to eradicate supply chain issues and at the same time, make their own business operations more robust. So again, the strategy in that particular instance would have been sharing that Six Sigma quality perspective that worked well for them with somebody with a company that meant so much to them in terms of how they operated. And then, a strategy in terms of providing value to the company in this perspective is value to your company, is value to your own business. you have to have a strategy that seeks to improve on what you do and how you do it, because efficiency and effectiveness is going to affect your bottom line. So you may have a strategy to, basically to produce more, but not just to produce more, but to produce more with less wastage, maybe to produce more with less cost, right? Whatever that strategy is, you always want to be looking inwardly on how you can do things better, more efficiently, and more effectively. And I do want to make a distinction between efficient and effective, because you can become really efficient at doing the wrong thing. So effective is based on the outcomes, right? So you always want to make sure that there's an integrative understanding between what you do efficiently and the outcome that it produces. And that's how you produce strategic value, right? Andrew, we can jump to the next slide.
Absolutely. And I wanted, as we're going on to the next slide, I also wanted to provide some insight for a sales strategy when you are trying to get new customers, and maybe your goal is to grow your business. And one way to do that is to attract new customers. The first thing you want to do in terms of a sales strategy is not to sell the product, which is, hey, it does this, but you want to sell the value that it provides the customers, right? How is it going to solve your problems? How is it going to make your life more valuable by purchasing my service or my product? So a lot of people still do the selling product. It might have worked back in the 1900s. We need to sell value and value added services. For example, I'll sell you a computer, but you don't know how to use it. One of the values that you bring from your company is not just selling the computer, but selling you a technician that's going to come in and teach you how to use it. That's value added. So it's always good to sell on value rather than on the product base.
That's 100% correct, and that's so the strategy on that would have been is a strategy for the customer, and that's the value proposition that you're offering, right?
Yes.
So what do we mean by growth? And again, depending on how you look at this particular terminology, there's so many different ways to explain it. So what I did though was look at what growth means in particular for a small business, right? So the first thing obviously is sales, and sales is about the revenue generated in your business. It's about cash flow, right? And here's the thing, you can grow your sales, but you may not be growing your profit or your profitability at the same time, right? Sometimes the strategy might be, I want to grow my sales, right? Because I want to increase the amount of customers that I have. How do you go about growing your sales? It might mean that you're expending more money in marketing, or you're expending more money in advertising, or in promotions, or maybe you're dropping your price. Whatever it is, you're increasing sales. So I'm saying now that a growth strategy for sales does not always align with a growth strategy for profitability. Although that may be, an end state that you're looking at, sometimes what you're really trying to do is grow your customer base, and then you work with the new customer base on growing your profitability down the road. All right. So, and that brings me to the other term now. You can grow your sales, or you can, or you can grow your profitability. And essentially what that is you always want to make sure that the revenue that you're earning, that you're spending less than the money that's coming in, right? And that's normally on a long-term scale. So profit is, as we know, it's the money that you make after you've paid for all of your expenses, right? And that's something it's a little time bound as well, because not every time you sell a product, you're going to get your money back at the same time. Sometimes the cost of what you're doing is spread across a production cycle, right? At the end of the day, though, you want to make sure that you're making a profit. You're growing your profits, because that is ultimately the measure for success in your business, right? Capacity. When we talk about capacity, we're talking about the ability of your company to do more and to do more effectively and efficiently, right? So sometimes you build capacity, right? So you can better serve your customers. You build capacity so you can remove problems in production. And sometimes by building capacity, by growing your company's ability to do something, you might be actually crossing hurdles and challenges that was in the past stymieing your progress. So you can build, you can grow your business through your sales, right? You can grow your business through profitability. You can grow your business through capacity. And then we have what is called the growth through the life cycle. And this is something that every business really should know, about itself, right? The business owner should know where is their business in terms of the business's life cycle. And they basically they are five stages really. So you have startup, right? You have growth, you have maturity, right? You can have a rebirth of the company, or you can have a decline, right? And what's really important is that I, I remember reading a statistic just recently, and it was really disturbing, right? But it said so much. We always look at business startups, and we tend to focus on the statistic about the survival rate of companies that just got into business, right? You're always seeing statistics about what's the percentages of businesses that fail within the first year or within the first 2 years. And the percentage is actually about 40% of businesses fail within the first 2 years. However, there's a statistic that is, to me, even more significant than that. And that's 70% of businesses by year 10 go out of business. 70%. Wow. That means 7 in 10 businesses, after they've been in business for almost a decade, they end up having to close shop. So you have to ask yourself, why is that happening? You would think that someone that has been in business for a decade understands the business, understands their customers, understands the competition, understands the market, right? Why are they failing? And when you look at it, it's because businesses, depending on where they are in their life cycle, the challenges are different. The struggles, the opportunities, it grows and it changes with the business according to its life cycle. So when you look at growth, you have to look at growth as a startup. And how do you grow your business from a startup into the growth stage, where the challenges and the opportunities are peculiar to that stage? And then how do you grow your business from growth to maturity? And what does that mean? And understanding the challenges and the opportunities that exist in a business in the mature stage. And I'll give you an example, right? Some of the top companies in the world today. If you look at what happened with Facebook just about a year ago when they announced basically the rebranding of Facebook into Meta, right? And now you have TikTok, right? The guys who own TikTok right now is probably the most prolific social media platform in the world. They are at this point literally working on destroying the platform. But it's not just destroying the platform. They're looking at creating the next thing. These companies are at such a high level in terms of what they do and the markets that they serve that they don't wait for the change to come. They are actually the change makers, right? So when you think about your life cycle, you think about how your business grows and what affects your business at that stage. So if you're looking at growing your business, you look at your sales, you look at your profit, you look at your capacity, but you must always look at where you are in your life cycle. Really, really critical. We can move to the next slide. So growth strategies. And this is really at the center of what we're talking about now. So when you think about market penetration, right? Essentially, it's one of the least risky strategies that you can have for growing your business, right? And it's really about how you sell more of your current products to your current customers. So if you have customers that are presently buying what you sell, the strategy is you'll be asking yourself this question: how do I get this person who's already a customer to buy more of what I'm selling? And you know, I've seen this happen before. Like companies, right now it's called shrinkflation, right? So it's not really a strategy that companies have to sell more. It's actually a strategy to sell less for the same price, right? But what they did was that in that strategy, they reduced the amount of the good or the goods in the packaging without changing the packaging. And I've actually seen where companies actually increase the size of their packages, right? Um, so sometimes let's look at another example where there may be a business that's selling items only in dozens, right? It's either you buy that amount or you don't buy that amount. That's the choice. If you wanted to increase the amount of goods that you're selling to a particular customer, what you may do is break up the packaging into smaller amounts. What you find is that they may start looking at the opportunity to buy that dozen and maybe a little more as opposed to 2 dozens, right? You're making it much easier and much more effective for the customer to get access to your products by breaking up the amounts into smaller amounts, or maybe offering it in a larger size, right? Where they can save a little more if they were to buy in quantity.
Right.
Andrew, did you have something to add to that one?
Yeah, and we've been seeing it not just in packaging, but we've been seeing it in services as well. I'm glad you brought up shrinkflation. That was a key topic right after the pandemic when we were slowly getting back to normal. We actually have a restaurant owner here with us today, and I'm sure she's sort of seen this play out where customers had a different level of service expectation prior to the pandemic, and once the pandemic came out, we had all the stimulus checks and everyone, and I had a lot of clients that were restaurants that weren't able to bring back the same amount of workers. They got used to being paid more, and then they started requesting more. That's why we're seeing Papa John's pay $20 an hour for a driver, so that most businesses can't really handle. So in terms of a customer, in terms of you and me as the diners, shrinkflation for us looked like that, we're going back to restaurants where it's the same price, but we're getting less service, or we're getting the same service for twice the amount. So that shrinkflation is another thing that we've been seeing here in the market. So Steve, I just wanted to bring that example to everybody as well.
Yeah, and again, it's a strategy, right, guys? So here's the thing about strategy, and particularly when you connect it to the word growth, right? It's a strategy to grow your business. And let's say your business is in decline, right? A stabilization strategy is a form of a growth strategy. So using the example of shrinkflation and the restaurant, if you have customers demanding more, but only wanting to pay the same price, then you have to become really creative with what you do and how you do it. Your cost is going up. Inflation is on the rise, and therefore people are spending less, or they're making more strategic decisions on how they spend. So you have to be, to an extent, as a small business, price competitive, right? Unless your product or service is so unique that you're the one that's determining the price, because you're at the point where people will pay whatever you're charging, and that's really in a minority of situations, right? So, again, from a perspective of market penetration, how do you get people to buy either this more of what you're selling, the same people, right, or to be consistent with their purchases, right? When competition is on the rise, right, you want to become very innovative with what you do and how you do it, right? So I use the example of repackaging, right? You may want to, again, you change the, let's say in a restaurant, you may change the size of your plating, right? Again, you don't ever want to do something that comes across as a gimmick, right? But you do, and you don't want to really, at the end of the day, mess with the quality of what you're producing or selling, right? But you do have to take into consideration that when there are forces that's compressing the business downwards, you have to have a strategy of growth, if only to maintain the position that you're at. In terms of
Absolutely.
market development, right? Market development is selling what you have, uh, basically to would be considered almost like an adjacent market. So think about a company that has, let's say they do deliveries, right? You can hire a truck to come, and you have to move from your home to another home, right? You hire this truck, they come, they get your stuff, and they take it to where you need to be. Um, you make a growth strategy in terms of market development for that company would be to maybe expand into other zip codes, right? So let's say they operate only within the Miami-Dade County, they may expand into Broward or all the way up to Palm Beach, just as an example, where you're basically what you're doing or what you're selling, right? You're expanding on the opportunity to provide that. Um, Another example might be opening later, expanding your hours of operation to make it more convenient to people who at this point in time cannot are not your customers because it's not convenient for them to buy from you, right? And that's again, like maybe a good example would be for a restaurant business. You have companies like Denny's and IHOP that has these wider opening hours. But if you traditionally sell within maybe just lunch and dinner, you may want to start serving breakfast as a growth strategy to attract the breakfast customers, right? So market development is about selling what you normally sell or working within your operational space to sell to customers that are right now not your customers, right? But who would buy your product if it was more convenient or if it was more accessible, right? Um, then you have alternative channels, and really alternative channels could work in tandem with market development. But here's what happened. After the pandemic, there was such a massive shift in the use of technology in an e-commerce space that it really does make it in such a way that alternative channels should be a category of growth just by itself. So what you have was people, customers have become very sophisticated and accustomed using technology and applications to get the things that they need. They've become more accustomed to buying things online. And when you think of alternative channels, that's the one that really, really I would like to emphasize on. That, having a brick and mortar space may mean that in terms of a growth strategy, that you start looking at an e-commerce space, or that you start looking at the rideshare apps where you can, have your goods delivered to wider markets, greater distances. It's about selling what you normally sell, right? To your customers. So it's your current customers, your current products, but giving them an opportunity to purchase from you differently, right? Think of a place where you normally would have to make the commute, and they haven't as yet, you know, reached to the point where they would actually engage with a ride-sharing company to make that whatever they're selling much more convenient for you to get, right? So in terms of a growth strategy, that's another space that you can be looking at. And then you have, you know, product development. So it's a classic strategy that involves developing new products to sell to your existing customers. So, Andre, just recently I was, doing a consulting session with a business that is service oriented, and they've been in business for a decade, and over that time it's very personalized services, so they would have had hundreds of customers.
Okay.
And at this point, however, their growth strategy was about new customers. And I said to them, I said, have you considered adding to the services that you have another line of complementary goods or services that can benefit those existing customers, right? So let's use an example. Let's say it's someone who is in financial services and they sell insurance products. And over the years, they've garnered hundreds of customers, right? Because they've sold insurance to people who then referred them to friends, who then referred them to family, and their book of business grew. Because of what we're seeing now in terms of, let's say, insurance with Obamacare, because of the expansion of it, these guys may have an opportunity to get into that and take some of those products to the customers that they already have, right? So that's what we mean when we talk about product development. It's maybe in the audience member today who has a restaurant. It might just be about expanding the menu, right? Maybe changing it around, offering new products to your customers with the attempt of creating better value, delighting them more, right? People are always
Experiences, maybe.
excited, to see something new. it, it, do you have something to share on that one in particular, Andre?
Yeah, I'm glad you actually shared about that one, because I saw a client the other day who was licensed massage therapist for years, and slowly but surely, as she was an entrepreneur at heart, and she's learning. She made sure that she improved herself, and as she grew, she started saying, well, I can do licensed massage therapy all I want, but if I break my hand, my business is gone. What other services can I provide that are in line with this, that will complement each other? She started doing yoga, she started doing mental wellness, and obviously each of those feeds into the other one. So in and of itself, she's able to not only satisfy her existing customers even more than they were, that to the point where they'll pay even more for the original service. She's able to bring in new customers that perhaps were only interested in yoga, and now because of the yoga, they're interested in massage therapy and mental wellness, and slowly that it brings into an ecosystem that can really just feeds itself. So that's something you guys really want to keep in mind. And in terms of market development, I was thinking, Steve, education is another huge way that everyone's using to be able to develop markets that maybe just don't even know that you exist, or didn't know that they needed your product.
Exactly. And that really is one of those areas of product development that's always expanding, always changing. As things become obsolete, as professions become obsolete in this day of technology, new workforce style courses and training becomes essentially exactly what we're talking about: growth strategies by universities, by using product development for that particular reason.
Yeah.
So again, the concept here is new products for your customers, right? And again, coming back to that example with education, that's where PDUs come in, right? It's how you keep your professionals with the right level of expertise as the occupation or the occupational standards change, right? And now we have another growth strategy for small businesses would be like new products for new customers. And you know, here's a good example. Um, we've all, like as information becomes more accessible and people become more concerned with their health and healthy eating habits and stuff like that, more and more we're getting the knowledge and the picture that sugar is really bad for you in all of its forms, right? And you start hearing about all of these different diets, and so you have people that have been traditionally manufacturing their goods using either sugar or high fructose corn syrup, stuff like that, which is being shown to be really, really bad for people's health. And then you have now, you hear about this diet called the keto diet, right? Where people they avoid sugar like it's the plague, and but still they have a taste for they don't lose their taste for something sweet. So you actually have replacements now, organic replacements for sugar that is that is, they use something called erythritol, right? It has a scientific name, but it's very what's the word? It's organic, but it does not affect the human body's insulin. Now, why am I using this as an example? What you have now is more and more companies replacing those ingredients, right? Or producing products with the erythritol for this new market. So it's new. So where they would have been traditionally making things, products using using sugar as a base, they're making new products for new markets, for people that demand this new taste or this new ingredient, this new ingredient list in what they're consuming to produce these new products. And it's opening up new industries. It's opening up new opportunities for businesses that have been traditionally in one particular thing, right? I remember a company out of Minneapolis that they were producing those snowmobiles, and a series of really bad winters in terms of not really cold, but actually the warmer winters where they didn't have as much snow actually affected the sales of those vehicles. And what they did was that they used what you see in car companies. Car companies use platforms. So it's the same chassis and engine in a series of vehicles, from the sedan to even like an SUV, a midsize. But what they do is they change the body of the vehicle, right? So when you think about new products and new customers, you use your current operational capabilities and you start producing for a new batch of customers that you have not traditionally looked at or marketed for.
Yeah, I think of veggie burgers for this one, the Impossible Burgers. McDonald's selling Impossible Burgers. That's what I think for this one.
Correct. And we actually have one of our businesses that we consult for at branches. They came to us. They actually do vegan ice cream, right? So it's all non-dairy, natural products that's used in the ice creams. And they've been doing really, really well. The market
Yeah,
for vegan food has been expanding exponentially, and they are
absolutely.
the front of it, and they are doing really, really well, right? And then we have integration as a growth strategy, and this really is, it's really for a much larger company that's cash rich, that's been doing well for a while, and they're looking to expand their business by scale, right? So when you think of a horizontal growth strategy, right, you're talking about basically uh, in, buying a competing business. So it's, let's say, you right next to you is a company that's been competing with you. So let's say you're in the restaurant business, just as an example, and across the street or right next to you is another restaurant, right? Uh, the strategy in integration in what they call a horizontal strategy would be to buy your competitor, right? Or to lease them out. Let's say the owner is getting on in age and they wanted to get out of the business. You take control of that business through a business arrangement, right? And you expand literally the size of your business and your capacity to sell more customers, and at the same time reduce the competitive environment. When you think of backward integration, you're talking about a growth strategy where you actually buy your supplier, right? So some companies actually buy a supplier, right? Because they are hoping that by purchasing that company, they can reduce their costs, they can improve their operations. Let's say it's on something that that becomes a little scarce. They may decide on a growth strategy to buy the supplier because now they own the supply chain completely, and they don't have to wait on when the goods are available because there are other companies buying from them, right? So again, growth strategy, but from a backward. And in terms of a forward, that's where you literally acquire companies that basically is, again, part of your distribution chain. And normally that's a forward linkage. That's where you are actually supplying this company with the components that you're producing. So it's like a manufacturer buying a retailer, right? So let's say you produce sweets and you sell sweets in wholesale. You might actually buy a confectionery retail store, right, where you now control from production all the way to the consumer, right? And in a nutshell, Andre, those are the growth strategies that businesses can look at. However, integration is normally for a much larger business that's in a much better cash or equity position.
Yeah, that can purchase somebody else.
Exactly. And most small businesses cannot do that. So they do have to become a little bit, strategic. So this is a comparison table that really just compares all of the strategies that we just spoke about, right? So on one slide, it's a helicopter view that Andre, I don't know if you make the slides available to people after, but
This recording will be available on the City of Miami Beach's website and the Navigator website as well.
Perfect. So this slide, ladies and gentlemen, actually has the details. We can go. There's a couple more on this, Andre. Yeah.
Gotcha.
One more again. Right. And this compares all of the strategies. Yeah, that's okay.
There you go.
Yeah, so this compares all of the strategies that we just discussed. So for businesses that wanted to kind of just revisit the strategy, understand the risk levels, see how one strategy compares to the next, just in a bite-sized sentence. This is a slide that'll do that for them.
Feel free to take a picture.
Right.
Awesome. Okay, give him a couple of seconds and I'll switch over, Steve.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And this brings us to the some of the measurements that you guys can use in terms of how you measure the performance of your growth, right? And so revenue growth is something that you want to measure. Now, again, keep in mind, right? You can be looking at how your revenue is growing, but it does not always translate to profitability. In fact, when you look at revenue, the thing that you're looking at that point, because again, you might be promoting sales, right, at a risk of profitability, right? You may want to be the price leader. You drop your price almost to a break-even point just to increase your sales and hopefully attract new customers so that people that's never bought your product before, they get a chance to taste it, they get a chance to use it, or they get a chance to be delighted by it. So a revenue growth strategy, using a measurement for revenue growth is not always looking at profitability to determine whether or not it's working, right? So you can have a strategy to build revenue and not profitability, especially if the strategy is about growing your customer base. So one of the things that you'd look at in this stage is your cash flow, right? And cash flow, and I'll tell you this, what you really want to have if you're looking at revenue growth is, at the end of the day, a net positive cash flow. That's where the money that is coming in is at least at the amount that is required to pay the expenses that you're facing, right? And of course, cash flow allows you to be able to reinvest that money into what you're doing. So let's use a real life example in this, Andre. Let's say you wanted to increase your revenue, and to do
Okay.
that, you're increasing your marketing budget, right?
Okay.
But you're using all of the profit that you're making this month, and you're taking all of that profit together with the monies that you have from before. You're putting it together into a bigger budget, and you're hoping to increase your sales, your revenue by the next month, right?
Mhm.
What happens is that if it's effective, what you're looking at is the revenue growth, but you may not experience profitability because you would have used the money, or even the money up that's in the future, the profits that's going to come from this, and reinvested it into an expenditure,
Mhm.
right? Another milestone that you look at in terms of growth would be profitability. Ultimately, the only true measure of the success of a business eventually is your profitability, because you cannot run your business extensively over time unless you start earning a profit, right? Now, at those really large businesses, they're in the science of managing profitability, because they understand the complexities that's involved in the taxation system at that level. So we hear about businesses that never pay taxes, right? But they're earning billions, right? That's the type of strategy that takes place at that level. But most small businesses do not have the ability to leverage on those loopholes, right? The financial system in which small businesses operate are a lot less sophisticated, and therefore profitability matters, right? In fact, for you to grow at all in your life cycle from a startup, um, the actually that's not really true, because we do have companies like Uber, right, that has never posted a profit,
Yeah.
right? But their growth strategy is about scale. Their growth strategy is about disrupting the market, owning the market eventually, just like what Google did, right? Google's strategy was to provide free access to information, and then eventually build on their product support levels to the point where they literally owned the e-commerce real estate of the world, right? And now they capitalize on that through advertising, right? So another milestone would obviously be you measure your customer growth. Now, here's the thing about customer growth, right? Um, it's you look at, what you're looking at is, you can look at growth of your customers in terms of the market that you're serving. You can look at growth of customers in terms of total terms, right? Across all of the different things that you're selling. Let's use a restaurant as an example. You can measure your customers at breakfast time, if it's a different group of customers at lunch and a different one at dinner. And then you look at all of your customers across what you sell on a daily basis, or you can break them up into categories, right? So you might be looking at, what, I want to grow my customers for breakfast, right? And therefore you start measuring the growth of the customer base within that particular segment. But at the end of the day, a true measure of growth for your business will always somehow parallel with what's happening with your customers, right? And some of the metrics, I just wanted to call out, some of the terms that they will come across eventually. Things like the customer retention rate, right, which is retain customers over a period, right? The customer churn, that's the rate customers stop doing business with you. Your revenue churn, the rate of revenue that is lost from existing customers. That's where customers actually start, buying less. Existing customer revenue growth rate, the rate of revenue generated from existing customers. Repeat purchase ratio, the rate customers come back for another purchase. Product return rate, the rate products are returned, the rate at which products are returned to you. And we know that's a big thing now, right? That's I think is one of the biggest parts of e-commerce. They say that is actually having such a detrimental impact on climate, because people can just literally, with a click of a finger, buy 100 products and then return 99. The days sales outstanding, which is the days taken to collect payments on a sale, because not all sales will come back in cash being received on that day. Sometimes you have payment terms for your customers. Your net promoter score, right, which is your customer satisfaction and how likely they are to refer your business to someone else. Time between purchases, the average time customers take to buy from you again. Loyal customer rate, the number of customers repeating purchases over a period. And I think one of the most critical things for every business, customer lifetime value, which is the revenue generated by a single customer, right? So, those are some of the terms, that when you start measuring your growth, you will invariably come across. And it's good to learn those terms and get to know them, right? What I didn't put that on a slide, Andre, but I can, so that when
I'll put it up at the end so that people can take pictures.
Right, perfect.
Okay.
And
Steve, I just want to let you know, it's 7 p.m.
Yeah, I know.
I know you need to get to karate.
Yeah.
For your son.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andre.
Of course, Steve. No, thank you for your presentation. I hope everybody enjoyed Steve taking his time to speak with us today. And if you have any questions, please still feel free to send them my way. And if I don't know, I got Steve's number, so I'll give him a call.
Definitely.
And
definitely.
email you back.
Sure. And my email is there as well, so feel free to send questions. I'll try my best to answer them as best as I can.
I'll put it up here for you guys on the chat, so it's easier.
Okay. Andrew, thank you again. Everybody, thank you again for the opportunity to talk with you guys today. And I do wish you all the best and a very good evening.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, take care, Andrew.
Good night.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. All right, everybody. So, we've come to the question part of the night. If you have any questions, feel free to put it on the chat. Meanwhile, while you guys start thinking of questions, I want to move forward a little bit with our presentation. We got a little bit to go. I know it's late. Thursday night, we got to go out to maybe get Thirsty Thursday, maybe go out for dinner. Who knows? Or come in early so we can start bright and early for Friday. So I just wanted to let you know where we are in terms of our offices here in Prospera in case you're interested in any consultation. I'm down here in South Florida in Doral. We also do Teams meetings in case you don't like to drive all the way down to Doral. So that works as well. If you're out in Tampa, in that area, we have an office in Tampa, Orlando, Atlanta, Brookhaven, Charlotte, and Raleigh, North Carolina. So we have offices all over the place in the southeastern United States. We're looking to expand, but this is where we are for right now. Please take this number down, take a picture. If you want to come out either way, you can check our website, which is www.prosperausa.org. Okay? Part of working at a nonprofit means I have many hats. I am IT. I am a business consultant. I do education. And I'm also the influencer, unwilling influencer, but I am the influencer. So please follow us in Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, whichever ones you guys like. Please follow us. You'll see me there. You'll see our events coming up there. It's going to make it easier for you. We already scroll half of our days anyways. Might as well make it worth it, right? Might as well let it help our businesses. And upcoming seminars for September, we have September 13th en español, empezando su negocio en línea, y en inglés, September 20th, online business and e-commerce. Mark your calendars. You can go register today at prosperausa.org/seminars. You can find it there soon. I think we're going to start building the links soon. So actually, we already made them. So you can go look at them now. Okay. Once again, I'm going to give you guys any chance for any questions. Please let me know. I'm going to leave it open for a couple minutes. If Shanti, if you have any questions on the Q&A thingy, let me know. If not, I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. Hope I see you here in Doral, or hope I see you in some other office in Prospera, and have a great rest of your night. I'm going to stay here for a couple minutes for questions. If not, have a great night, everybody. There's the contact info. No problem. Muted. Bueno, guys, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for coming. I didn't have any questions, so hope to see you soon. Have a great night.